Okay, thank you. The room is still a little bit empty, but we'll have to start to keep on with the schedule. So I'm here to talk about this joint effort which we are having with Teemu Paljakka from University of Helsinki and several other people who are working in the Paloheinä area. So a little bit background. Even as we know quite much about these bark beetle interactions already, there are several blind spots and lack of knowledge about the ecophysiological processes that actually happen inside the trees once the infestation starts. So at one point the tree is alive and the next it's dead, and the actual point where the tree dies is at least very difficult to define. And also there are more practical things like what is the threshold after which the tree is actually not going to survive the beetle attack when it can no longer adapt to the damage has already been done. And so the tree's capabilities are also linked to external things. Here we talk about mostly about drought. If we could understand better the changes that happen inside the trees, we could perhaps in the future innovate new methods of preventing the bark beetle damage to help the trees to defend themselves. And also, since I'm down here talking on behalf of the RESDINET project here, also this kind of methods of measuring the tree health and more accurately could actually help us to produce better ground reference for remote sensing. So here is the Paloheinä area, a little bit north of the Helsinki. It's part of the Helsinki Central Park complex, the largest part of it. Also very nice skiing track, so if you're ever in Finland and have time to have a ski, so that's the place to go in Helsinki. But it is also a little bit sad place because it looks pretty much like this. So the whole forest is full of bunch of groups of dead trees, spruce, killed by the spruce bark beetle. And this process has been mainly ignited by the drought events. So after 2021 and 22, there have been quite large beetle population on the area. And even as the population was not that the situation for bark beetle was not as favorable during the summer 23, there has still been so large population that we see hundreds of dead trees. So what we went to go there and do, we wanted to measure the growth and water status of the trees from the very start of the infestation. So we tried to find trees that were completely healthy at the beginning and monitor them through the summer until they're dead by the bark beetle attack. And we also wanted to see how these different measurements we did, different kind of measurements correlate with one another. Of course, there are reasons behind this, since if we have one measurement which is accurate but perhaps a little bit heavy to conclude, and then we have on the other hand we have measurement that is easier to conclude but less accurate. If they actually correlate well enough, we can actually decide what kind of measurements we actually need for the future reference. And also we would want to provide more accurate ground reference, ground truth or remote sensing. So even as we are quite confident that we can see and have this sort of an index of the damage from what we see from the ground, the sapflow and crown things, there are several occasions that we will miss something important. For example, when bark beetles attack from the very top of the tree, we might miss the attack. And also in some cases the needle discoloration is difficult to notice with bare eyes. So we would need more unbiased method of measuring the tree health. And so also one thing is the possibility if we could actually identify the effects of the drought on the trees and see if we can differentiate that from the Ipstipographus attacks. And so in Paloheinä, we had this sort of a 4 measurements which we did every year. First was this visual inspection of symptoms, which Päivi already showed in her presentation. So we saw 3 symptoms on the tree trunk and 2 on the canopy, on the foliage, and have this same index system. Still, while I said that it's inaccurate, it's still something we would like to do for our reference. Also, we had the sapflow measurements. You have one example there, the package which we had in forest, the logger and the sensor. Basically, so this is the so-called granular thermal dissipation probe. So it measures the water if it has 2 needles, one is heated, one is not. If tree is healthy, it will cool down the other needle, so we can calculate from the difference between the heat on the these 2 needles whether the tree is healthy or not. And then we have dendrometers. You can see on the left side of the screen. And then on the right side of the screen, we have this water potential chamber system, which we use to measure the water potential in the branches. So that blue system is used to, we take one branch from the top, from the canopy, from the foliage, and then we put the pressure until we see how much pressure is required to push the water out of the branch, which is, it depends how good the water situation of the leaves have, the needles have. Also, we had several supportive measurements as a experimental procedure. I'm not gonna have them all here, and they're not all here, at least it's a long list. But also we tried to have as much data from the soil from the stand as possible. So 2021, we started this as a little bit experimental. We were new with this kind of setup. So, and we also started as late as July, and we tried to aim for the first generation of beetles. And we only had these 9 sapflow measurements, these probes there. And also we had only a few dendrometers back then. But in 2022, we were encouraged by the successes and trial and error by the previous year, and we had more trees. So this time we had very close to this original damage spot, we had another 8 trees, and then we had 5 controlled trees further away. So we could compare completely healthy trees to these ones attacked. And here we had more dendrometers and better coverage on overall with our measurements. And in 2023, when this RESDINET project started, the FGI had also their measurements here and had these dendrometers, 52 dendrometers marked with red dots on the map. We also decided that we will still try even more now, and now we have you can see the yellow spots on the map are the loggers, and for every logger there was 5 trees in 2023, and even more thorough supportive measurements. And as you can see, I have put a circle there, so there are 2 previously difficultly damaged areas. So we hoped for bark beetle attack to occur. And we still haven't processed the data from 2023, but I have been given permission to already have some preliminary results from 2022. So here we have 5 example trees from both bark beetle plots and this control site. So bark beetle trees on the left and this control site on the right. And you can see from the right side of the screen that there are not much of a difference between these control trees. They are have quite similar water flux throughout the summer, and the drop you see of the August is a cause of long drought, which can be seen basically in every tree. And those control trees, you can see that the situation starts to normalize in October once the autumn rain starts. But then on the left side of the screen, you can see that there are these 5 trees, and especially trees 2 and 3. Well, they already decline in this sap flux during July. And also we can see that tree number 1 also had, despite it survived, it also had a little bit lowered water flux compared to these 4 and 5, which had quite milder attack. And also, if we compare this to the dendrometer data, we see quite similar symptoms. So if you look at the control site on the right, you can see that all trees had quite similar curve. There you can see the cause of the drought, but once again, the radial growth recovered once the rain started. But on the bark beetle side, we witnessed a quite similar story like that we had in the measured by more accurately by this sapflow. So trees number 2 and 3 were quite bad. They did not at all grow during the summer, and once they actually died, they actually started to lose the radius was actually became shorter over the summer. And in this case, you can also see that tree number 1, it basically had no growth due to the moderate attack. And these trees 4 and 5, which clearly have no visual symptoms, despite having few attack falls in the spring, they did have some growth. So at least the dendrometer data shows very similar results. This radial growth shows similar results to the sap flux. And then we have this water potential. Now, my apologies, the data is incomplete. There's one point of time missing, but we can, from this sample, which is now taken from the canopy, we can see from the branch taken from the canopy quite similar results. So the bark beetle trees 2 and 3 also had, we witnessed this drop in the water potential in the canopy during the in a similar time at the beginning of July that we can also see during the during both dendrometer and sap flux data. So a few minor conclusions here. So we could see the effects of the drought, the desiccation from all the measurements in both bark beetle site and control site. And based on these results we can quite reliably say that we can also separate this drought caused difference in radial growth from the bark beetle attacks, at least a few moments after this happened, and if we have these control measurements from completely healthy trees. And yeah, as we saw from the last diet, the previous diet, that despite this drought, there was overall growth in the trees without infestation. So that's a clear sign that we can separate the infestation from the other stressors in this case. And these water potential measurements, which were still quite not well, this is not yet really strong evidence, but it also did correlate with other measurements. So perhaps in the future we could use as little as taking the one branch from the tree to actually have this sort of unbiased reference for this ground truth for remote sensing. So one little sneak peek from the year 2023. These numbers may not mean a lot. These are perhaps a little more mild, moderate numbers of bark beetles if we could compare these to the Central Europe. But in Finnish conditions, the draft catch in 2023 was still quite large compared to what we have, with what we are used to in Finland. So I think we are going to see good results also in 2023, and it's just a matter of next summer whether this bark beetle population will decline or continue to wreak havoc in the Paloheinä area. So the next steps would be to complete this lab work and get this 3-year data from 21 to 23 over into one package and start to analyze it as one thing. And after that, I hope we can, in cooperation with FGI, start working with these remote sensing applications to combine this ground truth to what we see from the upper canopy, from the hyperspectral and multispectral cameras. So that's all from me. So thank you all for listening.